America is about to go through one of the deepest recessions we've ever seen in history. I have proof that I'm going to show you of this entire reasoning today. It's very real and it's going to happen in 2025. Now, before you write this off as just another video and this doesn't matter, give me 10 minutes of your time and then you can make this decision for yourself. What I'm about to show you has proven every recession if you were under the age of 50. So if you were under the age of 50, every recession since you've been alive has been proven exactly by what I'm about to show you. Now, I'm going to go through all of it in detail. I'm going to show you all the past recessions on how this predicted every single one of them, and then show you why we have a pretty big problem right now. Now, real quick, before we dive in too deep, this is a brand new YouTube channel. And the reason that we're here explaining what we're explaining today is we grew a TikTok page that in the past 3 or 4 months, we got 32 million views. And we have been talking about economic data, job growth, job loss, recessions, and things like that. And it's very hard to discuss all of that in a 60-second video. So we've created this channel to be able to express this in deeper detail so that people can understand and decide for themselves. I previously was a financial advisor. I no longer am. I now have a consulting business and I help people grow their businesses and understand the financial world like things we're talking about today. Let's dive in so you can decide on this for yourself. Now, what I have before you right here is the inverted yield curve. Now, this inverted yield curve is the 10-year and 3-month treasury. We can make this very difficult to understand, or we can make it super simple to understand. The most simple way to understand this is that this black line is very important. And when this blue line crosses down below this black line, that means that we have an inverted yield curve. The inversion itself does not mean a recession. It gives you the indication that a recession is on its way after you uninvert. Now, like I said, if you were under the age of 50, this has predicted every recession since you have been alive. Now, this is what we have going on right now. Before we get into detail about what happened in 2024 and what's going to happen in 2025, we're going to go take a look at the past so you can understand what has happened in past recessions. The first one we're going to take a look at is 2020. Now, this is a very minor recession, but we all know what happened in 2020. The most interesting thing about this is the fact that what we see here is before COVID really even started and before we even got the year 2020, we could actually see an inverted yield curve that was predicting that there was going to be a recession. So in late 2019, we actually had an inversion, and towards the end of 2019, we uninverted. Now, a couple months later, we saw a recession, which is marked in the gray area here on the chart. No, it was not very long. No, it was not very deep, but it was a recession. Now, you're going to start to see this pattern as we go through these charts. We drop down, we invert, we come back up, and within a few months, you go into a recession. Typically, we're looking at 4 to 12 months when you go into the actual recession. Now, let's go take a look at previous recession, which the next one would be quite a bit larger, and we're going to talk about 2008. Now, 2008 was much larger than what we experienced in 2020, and the most interesting thing that I think that we see as we look through all of these different recessions is all of these recessions are very different. What caused them, how they felt, what we experienced during the time with the actual economic issues. However, all of them have one very single thing in common, and that is the inverted yield curve that we saw beforehand. So if we look right here in 2008, you can see that we inverted right at the end of 2006. We uninverted in the middle of 2007, we came back down, inverted one more time, and then we officially uninverted right in the middle of 2007. Now, we did not actually go into a recession until right before 2008. So it was a few months later, which is what you can expect every time. The problem with these yield inversions is this jargon has been thrown around a lot. And so we hear that recessions are going to happen a lot because we see the inverted yield curves, but it happens for long lengths of time. Now, I want to show you previous ones here as well, and you're going to notice a common theme. We drop down, we come back up, and then a couple months later, we go into a recession. Now, the previous one we went into was the dot-com bubble, and what most of us think of that is, tech stocks going crazy and crashing, which you can kind of relate that with today. In fact, I would argue that every recession I'm going to show you today, we can take a piece of that and say we're kind of experiencing that right now. For example, in 2008, the great financial crisis, that had a lot to do with housing. Home prices have skyrocketed like they did in 2008. In the dot-com bubble, like what I'm about to show you here, tech stocks went crazy, not about AI, but it was about the dot-com bubble. So even though these are very different recessions, we kind of have a little piece of all of them at this very point in time, and we definitely have a big piece of the inverted yield curve. So we dropped down with an inversion here in the middle of 2000, okay, in August of 2000. We uninverted towards the beginning of 2001. And in this example, we actually went into a recession about 2.5 months later. So it happened pretty quickly. Now we're going to look at one more before we go back and look at what happened in 2024 and what we can expect in 2025. Now this inversion actually happened in the late 80s. You're talking about in June of 1989. That's when we crossed down right over here. Now, we uninverted and inverted several times at this point right here. This came back down and through several times, and the final uninversion happened right in the beginning of 1990, in January of 1990, but we did not actually see the recession start until July of 1990. So we have a pretty common theme. When the uninversion happens, we know that a recession is coming. However, it does take a few months, and you never know exactly how many months it's going to take. Let's go back and look at 2024 to see what we can expect now for 2025. Now, there's something very important you need to pay attention to when we look at the difference between 2024 and all of the recessions that I just showed you. This is the longest and deepest inversion we have ever seen. We did have a time in the early 80s where we did invert very deep, but we've never had it be this clean before, where we never uninverted. We didn't have this cross back up and cross back down several times, and we stayed at depths that we've only seen one time in history, but we stayed down there for a lot longer time. Now, as I've made these videos on TikTok and different places, and I've talked about the fact that we're going to see a recession, I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I heard someone in 2022 say there was going to be a recession. I heard someone in 2023 say there was going to be a recession. You know, all these people keep on crying wolf. Well, there's a solid reason for that right now. And the reason for that is we inverted in October of 2022, and we did not uninvert until October of 2024. So some people may have jumped the gun a little bit. Their thesis was not incorrect. They just got a little impatient and did not expect the uninversion to take 2 years. The significant part about this is that with this being this long and this deep, and us dealing with debt on a scale we've never seen before, this begs the question of what size of a recession we're actually going to see. Now, for those of you that understand that what I just showed you is a very large scale of an inverted yield curve, it probably brings the question in your mind on what can we expect. I mean, is this going to be the Great Depression? Are we going to see America fall? And there's a lot of gray area in the answer, because we have $35 trillion of debt. We have $1.3 trillion of credit card debt. Car repossessions are almost back at 2008 levels. We're playing with numbers on a scale that we haven't seen before. I don't want to put fear into everyone, but what I want everyone to do is be prepared, because a recession can be a fantastic opportunity if you are financially set up for it. You don't have to be extremely wealthy to take advantage of a recession. Now, some of the things that I suggest people do is, one, get out of high interest debt. That is one of the top things that you need to do, because you need to understand that interest rates typically do get lower when we go through a recession. The problem is that banks tend to tighten their lending. Homes were not a hot commodity selling in 2009 and 2010, and interest rates were pretty low. So banks do tighten up when we go through a recessionary time. Job loss typically happens on a much grander scale than what we're used to. And with the size of the inversion we saw here, it would not be a surprise if we saw job loss on the same scale we saw in 2008. Now, you can use this information for whatever you want to. You can say that I'm not going to believe there's going to be a recession, and that is fine. I've laid out the facts for you. Me and my family are financially preparing for there to be a recession starting in 2025 and possibly taking a couple years to actually get through and be over with. Thank you guys for watching the video today. Please help support us. Subscribe, like, comment. Let me know your thoughts on this. We're going to grow this channel, and we're going to continue the movement that we started on TikTok. And we're going to be bringing a new video to you every week on one of the hot topics that we talk about in much greater detail. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.